35%. That is how much cheaper rammed earth walls were than hollow brick in documented English construction. In one case, the savings reached 80%. The material cost was almost nothing. The equipment was wooden forms. The labor was compression. In 1926, the United States Department of Agriculture published those numbers. Government engineers wrote the manual. They provided soil selection guides, compaction techniques, and labor estimates. 3 men could place 54 square feet of 18-inch wall in a single day. Their conclusion was unambiguous. No permanent building material is cheaper. That bulletin is still in the archive. The technique is not in the building code. Open the International Residential Code today. Search for rammed earth. You will find detailed tables for wood framing, stud spacing, nail patterns, header sizes. You will find nothing for compacted soil. The IRC's conventional construction provisions are, by the explicit language of the Code Council, designed for repetitive light wood framing. Everything else requires engineering documentation you must pay for yourself. 6,800 years of continuous use. Buildings standing since the 1400s. A wall the USDA called the cheapest permanent material available. This is not a story about a technique that failed. This is a story about a technique that succeeded without generating a single recurring bill. Welcome to Off-Grid Secrets. The archive opens in the Yellow River Valley, roughly 4,800 years before the Common Era. A Neolithic community we now call Banpo. They did not leave behind a temple. They did not leave behind a king's tomb or a monument to conquest. They left behind a stove, a cooking surface made from compacted earth, pressed into form and hardened without fire. The oldest rammed earth structure ever unearthed in Asia is not a palace. It is a place where someone made dinner. This matters. When a technique appears first in domestic life, it means the physics was trusted. Ordinary people do not experiment with the walls of their homes. They build with what works. The method was simple. Wooden forms held the shape. Damp earth, a mixture of sand, silt, and clay, was placed inside in shallow layers. Then the ramming began. Hand tools struck the surface in rhythm, compressing the loose soil until it rang solid beneath the blow. The sound changed as the material densified. When the tone shifted, the layer was complete. Another was added. When the wall reached height, the forms were pulled away. The wall stood on its own, surprisingly hard, cool to the touch. No mortar, no kiln, no cure time. They coded it out. They can't code out physics. Subscribe, the next archive opens soon. Now let's get back to the investigation. The forms come off immediately. What the Banpo builders understood, without instruments, without laboratories, without peer review, was that soil under pressure becomes something else. The particles lock, the mass stabilizes. The wall becomes monolithic, and monolithic walls do not fail the way assembled walls fail. There are no joints to separate, no mortar to crack. The structure is the material. This was not an isolated discovery. Thousands of miles away in the Iron Age Mediterranean, builders arrived at the same technique independently. No trade routes connected these two centers of origin. No cultural exchange carried the knowledge across continents. The physics was simply too useful to stay hidden. Two civilizations separated by geography and millennia pressed dirt into forms and watched it harden. This was not a fluke. This was convergent engineering. And the scale grew. In China's Fujian province between the 15th and 20th centuries, the Hakka people built the tulu, massive circular and rectangular earthen structures, some rising 4 stories, housing up to 800 residents within a single building. These were not primitive shelters. They were defensive architecture, communal infrastructure, entire villages contained within rammed earth walls, thick enough to resist cannon fire. 46 of them still stand today. UNESCO designated them a World Heritage Site. The walls have not moved. The physics has not changed. Further north, in the arid reaches of northwest China, rammed earth became the material of empire. Sections of the Great Wall itself, not the stone-faced tourist portions, but the older western stretches were built by packing earth between wooden forms. The same technique that made a Neolithic stove made a barrier visible from space. This was not an experiment. This was civilization. By 1926, the knowledge had crossed oceans. The United States Department of Agriculture published Farmer's Bulletin number 1500, authored by M.C. Betts and T.A.H. Miller. The document was not a curiosity. It was a technical manual. It described soil selection, form construction, compaction techniques, and finishing methods. It provided labor estimates. 3 men could place 54 square feet of 18-inch wall in a single day, and it made a claim that should have changed American construction forever. No permanent building material is cheaper. Those were not the words of an activist. They were the words of government engineers, published by the Federal Printing Office, distributed to farmers across the country. The technique was proven. The instructions were public. The cost advantage was documented. The question is not whether it worked. The question is what happened next. To understand why rammed earth disappeared from American construction, you first have to understand why it should not have. In 2008, researchers Matthew Hall and David Allenson published their findings in the journal Energy and Buildings. They had constructed a test building in the United Kingdom using stabilized rammed earth walls, soil mixed with a small percentage of cement, compacted in the traditional method, then monitored under controlled conditions. What they measured defied the metrics that dominate modern energy codes. Modern building standards judge walls by R value, resistance to heat flow. The higher the number, the better the wall supposedly performs. By that measure, rammed earth is unremarkable. Its thermal conductivity falls between 0.64 and 1.01 watts per meter Kelvin, depending on the mix. A standard fiberglass bat insulates better by the numbers. But Hall and Allenson were not measuring what the codes measure. They were measuring what the codes ignore. Rammed earth has mass. 18 inches of compacted soil weighs roughly 140 pounds per square foot. That mass absorbs heat slowly and releases it slowly. The wall does not block temperature, it delays it. Your afternoon sun enters the wall and exits at midnight. Your morning chill enters the wall and exits at dusk. The house stays stable while the weather swings. This is thermal mass, not a metaphor, a physical fact. The researchers measured something else the codes cannot see: moisture buffering. Rammed earth is porous and hygroscopic. When indoor humidity rises, the wall absorbs moisture. When humidity falls, the wall releases it. The building breathes. In the UK test structure, the rammed earth walls significantly reduce periodic relative humidity fluctuations in both summer and winter simulations. After 1 year of monitoring, no mold growth appeared on any interior surface. The building had no mechanical ventilation. The walls did the work. Hall and Allenson found another result that troubled the spreadsheets. They expected thermal conductivity to correlate with density. The denser the wall, the faster it would conduct heat. It did not. The relationship between conductivity and maximum dry density showed no direct correlation. Microstructure dominated. Particle contact patterns mattered more than weight. The physics was stranger than the models. The dirt outperformed the spreadsheet. There is a caveat, and it matters. Wet walls conduct heat faster. Moisture fills the pores and creates thermal bridges. The performance depends on keeping water out. This is why every historical rammed earth tradition emphasizes the same principle. Protect the wall from rain, deep roof overhangs, raised foundations, proper drainage. The technique works if you respect the water. Think of your own house. Your furnace fights to lift 15-degree air to 68. It cycles on, burns fuel, pushes heat into rooms that leak it through thin walls and single-pane windows. The system runs constantly and the bill arrives monthly. Now imagine a wall that is already holding 54 degrees, not because of insulation, because of mass. The earth beneath your frost line stays near that temperature year-round. A rammed earth wall, properly sited and protected, starts closer to comfort than your furnace ever gets. The mass absorbs your afternoon sun and returns it at midnight. The pores take your shower steam and give it back when the air dries. The house breathes. The energy bill drops. And the cost? The USDA bulletin document English construction where rammed earth walls, called PSA, came in 35% cheaper than hollow brick. One case showed 80% savings. The material is under your feet. The labor is compression. The equipment is wooden forms. No permanent building material is cheaper. So why is every contractor in America still framing with 2x4s? The International Residential Code is updated every 3 years. It governs how homes are built across most of the United States. Open it to the section on wall construction and you will find detailed tables for wood framing, stud spacing, sheathing requirements, nail patterns, header sizes, every dimension spelled out. Search for rammed earth. You will not find it. This is not an oversight. The IRC's conventional construction provisions are, by the explicit language of the International Code Council, entirely prescriptive and intended for repetitive light wood framing. The tables assume lumber. The pathways assume cavities. The compliant structure assumes you are building the same house that has been approved 10,000 times before. If you are not, you must apply through Section R 104.11, Alternative Materials, Design, and Methods. The pathway exists. The language permits alternatives when the building official finds equivalence, but the burden is yours. You must provide engineering documentation. You must demonstrate compliance through calculation, not prescription. You must pay for the proof. The dirt is free, the paperwork is not. Even structural approval does not guarantee energy compliance. Modern energy codes, administered through the International Energy Conservation Code, express requirements as R values by climate zone: cavity insulation, continuous insulation, prescriptive tables built around the assumption that walls are hollow and filled with something manufactured. A monolithic rammed earth wall does not fit the table. Its thermal mass is invisible to the metric. To comply, builders often must add insulation layers, creating hybrid sandwich assemblies that raise costs and complexity. The code does not ban earth walls. It simply cannot see them. The appraisal system is worse. In 1936, the Federal Housing Administration published its Underwriting Manual, the document that would shape American mortgage lending for generations. It instructed appraisers to evaluate properties based on conformity. Structures with ichthytic or freakish designs were to be penalized. Unnecessary variety of materials, the manual stated, cannot increase the rating. The word was freakish, written into federal lending guidance. The message was clear: build what your neighbors built or build at a discount. That logic persists. Fannie Mae's current selling guide acknowledges the problem without solving it. When there are no truly comparable sales because of uniqueness, the appraiser must use the best available indicators of value and make market-supported adjustments. Translation: your rammed earth house will be compared to stick frame houses that cost less to permit. The uniqueness you paid for becomes the discount you absorb. You cannot get a conventional mortgage on a house the system cannot appraise. The insurance industry follows the same pattern. There is no standardized actuarial category for rammed earth construction in most American states. No premium tables, no loss data. The underwriter has no box to check. Some insurers will write policies on a case-by-case basis. Most will not. The licensing infrastructure completes the circle. In most jurisdictions, there is no credential for a rammed earth contractor, no continuing education pathway, no trade certification. The inspector who visits your site has no checklist for what you are building. The system does not reject rammed earth. It simply has no category for approval. They update the code every 3 years with committees that include contractors, manufacturers, and industry representatives who profit from conventional materials. They publish prescriptive tables that assume wood framing and cavity insulation. They require engineering documentation for anything outside the template, documentation that can cost more than the wall itself. They built an appraisal system that penalizes uniqueness and rewards repetition. They created a licensing infrastructure with no pathway for earthen construction. They did not ban rammed earth. They made it expensive to be legal. One state proves what is possible. New Mexico has explicit earthen building code provisions. The rules are detailed: minimum 18-inch exterior wall thickness, 12-inch interior, height limit of 2 stories, compressive strength of 300 pounds per square inch, verified by laboratory testing, stabilized soil defined as 6% Portland cement by weight or passing ASTMD 1633. This is what a real pathway looks like: prescriptive, documented, buildable. It exists in 1 state. 49 others require you to start from scratch. The economic logic is not hidden. ASTME 2392, the Guide for Design of Earthen Wall Building Systems, explicitly includes rammed earth, cob, and adobe. The document acknowledges that earthen construction has fallen into disfavor in places where it was once common. It notes the late 20th century emergence of rational design methods. Even the standards body admits the technique was displaced, not disproven, displaced. Follow the materials and you find the motive. The United States cement industry shipped approximately 110 million tons in 2024, with an estimated value of $17 billion. Wire Heuser, a single timber company, reported $7.1 billion in net sales the same year. When your wall is local soil, you buy less of what those industries sell. You cannot meter dirt. You cannot patent compaction. You cannot create a subscription for a wall that holds 54 degrees without electricity. The technique does not generate revenue after the sale. In an economy built on recurring bills, that is the violation. David Easton has been building rammed earth structures in the United States since 1976. His company, Rammed Earthworks, has completed projects across the American Southwest for nearly 5 decades. In 1982, he published The Rammed Earth House, a technical manual that brought the method to a generation of owner-builders who had never heard the term PC. 48 years, not a trend, a lineage. Easton's walls are still standing. His clients are still living in them. The thermal mass still moderates. The physics has not changed. In Tucson, Arizona, architect Rick Joy completed the Catalina House in 1998. The structure features a rough, rammed earth exterior shell, striated layers visible on the surface, the geology of the build site made vertical. The interior is refined. The contrast is deliberate. Earth walls in architecture magazines. Awards from institutions that would never approve the permit in their own jurisdictions. The technique never left. It just moved to a different price bracket. But the revival is not limited to high design projects. In 2016, the Aleutian Housing Authority built a stabilized rammed earth home in Butte, Alaska, with support from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The project used an insulated sandwich assembly to meet cold climate performance requirements, rammed earth on the interior and exterior faces, rigid insulation in the cavity between. The federal government helped build a rammed earth house. In Alaska, this is not fringe. In Western Australia, the State Department of Housing made a policy decision documented through research partnerships with the University of Western Australia and the Australian Research Council. The government would build approximately 300 rammed earth houses in remote Aboriginal communities across the Kimberley region. Not boutique, not experimental. Housing infrastructure at scale. New Zealand wrote the clearest code 27 years ago. NZS 4299, published in 1998, covers adobe, pressed earth brick, and rammed earth for builders not requiring specific design. The standard provides a compliance pathway for clauses B1, B2, and E2 of the New Zealand Building Code: structure, durability, and external moisture. Same technique, same physics, different policy. In New Zealand, you do not need an engineer to build with earth. In America, you need an engineer, a lawyer, and a very patient bank. The cost reality is honest. Raw materials can be nearly free. The soil is often already on site. The USDA bulletin documented very little cash outlay when labor was spare time and materials were local. The historical metric holds 3 workers, 1 day, 54 square feet of 18-inch wall. But modern compliance changes the equation. The 300 psi compressive strength test requires laboratory verification. Engineering documentation requires a licensed professional. Permit fees accumulate, inspection costs multiply. The materials for a rammed earth wall can cost less than the permit to build it. That is the inversion. The pattern is not unique to Earth. Passive solar mass walls, tram walls, appear as a special carve-out in New Mexico's earthen code, meaning even where earth is legal, solar thermal strategies require their own exemptions. Straw bale construction offers extraordinary insulation values and faces the same prescriptive pathway friction. Cob and adobe belong to the same earthen family that ASTM acknowledges has fallen into disfavor. Natural lime plasters provide moisture buffering only when surfaces remain vapor open. Performance lost when forced under impermeable modern finishes. Earth tubes were coated out. Passive solar was appraised away. Straw bale was deemed alternative. Lime wash cooling was buried under HOA bylaws. The pattern repeats. Building methods that eliminate recurring bills are systematically excluded from the pathways that make construction easy. Walk into a rammed earth house that David Easton built in 1983. The walls are cool in summer. The humidity is stable. No air conditioner runs, no dehumidifier cycles. The physics that worked at Banpo works in California. The technique is not lost, it is avoided. They will not tell you that the United States Department of Agriculture once called rammed earth the cheapest permanent building material available. They will not tell you that New Zealand wrote it into code in 1998 and never wrote it out. They will not tell you that the walls of the Fujin Tolu have been standing since the 1400s, built by farmers who never consulted an engineer. They will not tell you that the ground beneath your yard has been holding 54 degrees since before your house was built. There is a wall that feels like stone when you press your hand against it. Solid, cool, dense enough to stop a bullet. It is made of dirt. You understand now why it feels forbidden. Not because it fails, because it succeeds without asking permission, because it holds temperature without a meter, because it stands for centuries without a service contract, because the material is already beneath your feet and no one can charge you a subscription to reach it. The earth does not care about your permit. It does not know it is classified as alternative. It has been holding temperature, absorbing moisture, and standing against weather for 7,000 years. It is waiting beneath every construction site, behind every code committee hearing, under every foundation poured with materials shipped from somewhere else. A wall you cannot meter, a material you cannot patent, engineering that asks for no service contract, no monthly invoice, no financing term. The physics has not changed, the dirt has not changed, only the economy that decides what is easy and what is expensive to approve. Every share builds what they tried to bury. Every view makes the archive harder to forget. Save this, send this. The knowledge is the material. Next time on Forbidden Homestead, the wall that heats itself. No furnace, no fuel, no moving parts. A sheet of glass, a mass of concrete, and physics the building code cannot explain. The Trome Wall, patented in 1981, coded out in less than a decade. The archive opens in the high deserts of New Mexico.